Sasha, hi.
Hey.
Here you are. I see you at the whiteboard. You're solving an equation as you always are today. X is what you're solving for what?
X is why Rand Paul needs better data than any of his Republican opponents.
Okay, now we're talking about this because, of course, Rand Paul is announcing for president tomorrow. But I'm a little confused. I thought, like, data was the whole thing now in politics. Everybody needs a lot of data.
Yeah, this is the Vogue Republican Party talking about how they need to improve their data and analytics system. Every campaign is going out and hiring people to do micro-targeting for them. But Rand Paul's strategy demands the tactics that are reliant on that type of data and analytics more than Jeb or Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or anybody else in this field.
Okay, so give us the equation here for that gets us to X.
So the first variable we're looking at is R. For Ron Paul, Rand's dad.
Ron Paul.
Obviously ran twice for president, and over the course of that, accumulated a list of donors, supporters, people who are usually outside the mainstream of Republican politics, drawn to his libertarianism. Rand's going to inherit that base, and he's going to want to use that to expand upon it, to look for other people who resemble him.
But he needs more than just dad's voters.
Yeah, he's going to try to. I mean, this is one of the things we hear from Rand Paul as a candidate, is talking about expanding the party. In some ways, in different directions than his father, but definitely that's going to be a starting point to look for other people who statistically resemble his father, and he'll probably have a lot more resources than his father. So people that his father couldn't get to, Rand might be able to.
Right, so it's not just that, I mean, a lot of people will say that one of Rand's advantages is that he has this built-in base from his father. That is an advantage, but you're saying there's something extra to that, which is that those voters probably look a lot like the kind of other voters that he wants to attract to bring in to his coalition.
Yeah, this is at the core of basically what we call micro-targeting statistical modeling. It's taking a small group of people that you know information about, they could be your donors, your voters already, your volunteers, and extrapolating to find other people who resemble them statistically, and then go out and contact those people, send them an email, knock on their door, and try to mobilize, recruit them.
Okay. What's next in the equation, Professor Issenberg?
So T plus C, T, turnout. Rand Paul, more than any of his Republican candidates, talking about growing his vote by bringing new people into the process. In Iowa, obviously, this could mean people who are too young to have a history of voting in the caucuses, participating in the caucuses. This could be people who had been Democrats or independents before. Each of the candidates in Iowa can go out and buy a list of past caucus goers from the state Republican Party, but Rand is talking about mobilizing people who are outside of that existing universe. The C is college students. Rand obviously is issue-based, talking about decriminalizing drugs, talking about hemp, talking about criminal justice reform, is making a very concerted effort to go to young voters.
Well, and the foreign policy stances, too, which are just suspicious of foreign adventurism, like a lot of college students are.
Yeah, and one of the differences we're going to see in Iowa this year, as opposed to the 2 years when his father ran, is that caucuses are going to be later in January. Colleges are going to be in session. They're going to be back from Christmas break. That means that a need for targeting students where they live, and possibly identifying students who are at colleges in Iowa, but may live in other states at home, making sure that they're registered to vote by caucus day in Iowa.
He needs to go for college kids, and then is there a universe beyond that of new people that he can bring into the caucus that are going to be Rand Paul voters?
Yeah, I mean, the way at least he's talking about this is that there might be disaffected voters who hadn't actively participated in any party's primaries or caucuses in Iowa or other states, or people who might have turned out for Obama. You can imagine some of those people who are sort of suspicious of anti-war might have been drawn to Obama in past years.
I was going to say the interesting thing about this to me is that for all the talk about Ted Cruz, what he announced as being maybe the Republican Obama, in this respect at least, there's a lot more similarity between Rand Paul and Obama, because of course Obama in 2008 did exactly this, change the makeup of the caucus universe in order to beat Hillary Clinton and John Edwards.
Yeah, and Obama, made a point of going out and finding voters who were 17 at the time that he went and contacted them, because they'd be a voting age and thus eligible to caucus. And to do that, you actually need to get people who are outside the voter rolls, go out and find them where they live, even if they're still in high school.
All right, back to the whiteboard. There's one more element of this equation.
And that's modeling, and that's what we've been talking about. That is using the base of knowledge you have about your existing supporters, not just his fathers, but people who've signed up as, he filibustered on the floor, sort of had an aggressive digital operation, and then go out and extrapolating, finding other people like them, and making sure you contact with them to get them to give, get them to volunteer, and to mobilize them to turn out to vote if they're not already natural voters.
What do you know, Sasha, about the people around Rand and whether they not only understand this math, this equation, this logic, and whether not only whether they understand it, but whether they're capable of pulling it off?
I mean, I think that there is a real focus on the digitalist building there. Vince Harris, who previously worked for Ted Cruz and is one of the and left and is now with Rand Paul. The focus on digital engagement, I think, is clearly there. What you need, as we saw, the Obama campaign was successful in ways that other candidates, even if they talk a good game about it, is that building and maintaining a volunteer network, has an infrastructure of offices and staff, and it's very hard to see, whether the proof of that is going to be in the reality of building that national infrastructure.
And is there reason to think, based on your equation, are there enough of these kinds of voters in Iowa for somebody like Rand Paul to run away with the caucus?
It's such a small pool of people in the caucus and such a large field of candidates, right? So, you know, if you're talking about a natural base of 75, 100,000 Republicans who caucused in the past, adding 5,000 people to that in a field of 12 or 15 candidates, you could see what the margin would be. And so ultimately, it's not a lot of total voters you're going out and getting.
And is there any competition with other Republicans whom these kinds of people might be attracted to? Do you see any other candidate as a potential threat?
Yeah, and I think that this is sort of what we're seeing in this whole field is that the lanes are getting smaller and smaller as the number of people are running. But yeah, I think that, you know, you can imagine him squeezed by Cruz on one side. You could imagine appeal for other candidates. And so, you know, that there's the question is whether they'll be as aggressively looking to mobilize new voters as much as persuade the existing ones.
So basically the takeaway here is every Republican candidate needs data. Rand needs it more, but if he gets it right, he could probably gain more from it than almost anyone.
Yeah. The thing data is best at is finding people who have stable attributes that aren't going to change over the course of the year, going out, getting them, and mobilizing them. And that's Rand Paul's strategic challenge, and he needs the tactics and technique to get it right.
Sasha P. Issenberg, author of this brilliant book, The Victory Lab, thank you and your giant, humongous brain.